I hope you are all doing fantastic today. This is Jason, the Pasta Doctor, back on Twitch, just saying a beautiful hello this gorgeous Friday afternoon. Well, it's gorgeous where I live because it's raining, and I don't know about you, but I love the rain. Oh, how I love the rain. So, we're back today with another Shower Thoughts episode where basically we're just going to spend time looking at aspects of mental health and well being and care for ourselves and one another. So, with that being said, today is all about self care. And so I have a viewer. Hey, hello. Thanks for being here. If you want to drop a hello in the chat, that'd be awesome. You don't have to. But for anybody on Twitch, if you watch this later on, I'm thankful that you watched it. If it was meaningful to you in some way, it would be great if you gave me a follow. I also don't argue with subs. If you're at some point watching this later, maybe on YouTube, where you can find all my previous Twitch streams on Pasta Doctor on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. I always feel weird asking for follows, likes, subscribes, so on and so forth. I feel a little dirty. I'm just saying. But, that's how it works here, and that's how it works over on YouTube. And I love to know that this is the time I spend doing this is impactful and meaningful to people. So hopefully you do that. A sip, and then we're going to jump right in. So we are talking about self-care and the holistic self-care journey, the importance of nurturing our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Now, it wasn't all that long ago on my normal stream where I spend time talking about my book, Living Intentionally, that we talked about intentional well-being, and we covered these three areas in the book, but we're going a little bit it's a similar direction, but maybe a little deeper, or a few little rabbit trails that we didn't take when we were talking about it from my book, Living Intentionally. Just because I think self-care is so important, and it's something that we tend to ignore as human beings, and we probably ignore it for a lot of reasons: time, sometimes money. Sometimes we're distracted by other things, or we're just busy. There's a lot of reasons to neglect self-care. With that being said, let's dive in. So what is self-care? Well, it's frequently misunderstood as indulgence, or just an occasional treat, like just a special dinner out or doing something special. We see that idea as self-care. And, well, that's not true. Self-care is a profound daily commitment to deep, sustainable nourishment of our physical being, our emotional, and our spiritual being. It is an active practice of ensuring our whole being has what it needs to function, thrive, and remain resilient in the face of life's demands. So I have a fun little quote from Audre Lorde, who stated, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation." And that is an act of political warfare. I'm not sure if I would agree it's quite an act of political warfare, but it is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And I always find it interesting that we live in a world that focuses very much on the self in general. We are an individualized, especially here in the United States and in Western nations in general, we are a very individualized society, right? How many Star Trek fans out there? I love Star Trek. A famous quote from Star Trek, of course, Mr. Spock, "Live long and prosper." That's not the quote. It's that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the needs of the one. And we kind of do that backwards here in the good old US of A, where we tend to put the needs of the one, or at least we think the needs of the one, ahead of the needs of the many. And selfishness tends to be prized almost. However, that's not the case when we talk about self-care. When we talk about self-care, we deem that as selfish and unnecessary. When we take time just for ourselves, just for me, I feel like I'm not centered. I'm going to move my camera a bit. There we go. Now I feel a little more, we tend to see self-care as being indulgent, and it's not. It is necessary. If we are going to love and care for other people around us, we have to have love and care to give. You've probably heard the old cliche that you cannot pour anything out of an empty cup, and it is very, very true. You cannot pour out of an empty cup. So let's talk about self-care. 3 pillars. Number 1, physical self-care. Physical self-care involves intentionally caring for the vessel, the body that carries you through life. It is about tuning into your body's signals and providing it with the resources it needs to be strong, healthy, and energized. So here are a few key practices. Nourishment, or, food. Fueling the body through balanced, nutrient-dense meals. Now, if you know anything about me, if you've ever seen me stand up, I am not a small person, but I find I feel better when I eat better. It's plain and simple. When we talked about intentional well-being in my book, we talked about how all of this is connected. Our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being are connected, and when one of those is suffering, the others usually suffer along with it. I'll give you an example. If I overindulge in sugar, like I eat a lot of sweets or too much cake or something like that, I will notice it in my emotions, and I will notice it in my spiritual well-being. I really do. It's kind of odd. I'm not saying sugar is bad. I mean, it is bad for you, but sometimes you got to eat something that tastes good. But fueling the body through balanced, nutrient-dense meals is hugely important. So eat what you need to eat. It's okay. Every now and then, a little broccoli will not kill you. You also need to maintain proper hydration, right? Every time I do a Twitch stream, you see me with a bottle of something, whether it's, Powerade Blue, which is the best color of Powerade. I know people may say flavors. It's a color. Because it's supposed to be mixed berry, and there is nothing about this that tastes like any berry I've ever eaten. But that's okay. I love Powerade Zero. Don't take me wrong. But maintaining proper hydration. I actually have an app on my phone. I'll even show it to you because, boy, that'll be fun, won't it? I have an app on my phone where I track my hydration. Currently, it's a llama, and I am at, that's incorrect, isn't it? Oh, no, it's not incorrect yet. But I'm at about 70 ounces of water so far today, 54% of my daily intake of water. I shoot for a gallon a day. And so proper hydration, very important. And eating mindfully, paying attention to how different foods make you feel, not eating when you're distracted, all very good for you. The next one is joyful movement, right? Physical activities that feel good rather than punishing, finding movement you enjoy, and prioritizing consistency over intensity. So movement, you can't cram movement. I don't know if you've ever done that. You have a test the next day, you haven't studied, or you have an assignment due the next day, and you haven't even started it yet, so you have to stay up late and you get it done, right? Exercise doesn't work that way. You can't exercise for 5 hours on Monday and then not exercise the rest of the week and call that balanced in any way, shape, or form. You're also not going to do things that you don't enjoy with any consistency. That is typically how life works. Now, unless you are an elite athlete, which I am not, or you are like a bodybuilder or something like that, prioritize consistency over intensity. It is better to go for a 30-minute walk 5 days a week than to go for a 2-hour walk on Saturday. It is better to do yoga or some light resistance training, even just body weight exercises 3 or 4 days a week than it is, I'm sorry, I'm organizing my desk while I'm talking, than it is to lift super heavy and super long once or twice a week. Now, if you have fitness goals and you're fitting in some intense exercises to reach those fitness goals, that's fine. But I have discovered that this is extremely true. Consistency over intensity and doing things you enjoy. That is why I play pickleball. It's why I walk my dogs. I enjoy doing these things, and it keeps me active. So restoration and rest, prioritize deep, restful sleep by maintaining a consistent sleep schedule and a calming bedtime routine, allowing the body to heal and recharge after exertion. I try to be very good about having, at least I'm in bed at usually between 10 and 11 at night, with the plan to get up around 6:30 or 7 the next day. That's usually my routine. And my bedtime routine, I get ready for bed, I read my Bible, and then I usually read a book. That's what I do to try to calm everything down and get ready for sleep, because I love to sleep. Who doesn't love to sleep? And then finally, listen to your body. Recognize physical boundaries and address aches and pains promptly. Rest when your body asks for it without guilt. Go to the doctor, get your checkups, do things that are good for your preventative care. But that's pillar number 1, physical self-care. Very, very important. When your body is exhausted, your emotions and your spiritual well-being will not be good. I promise. Pillar number 2, emotional self-care or emotional well-being. Emotional self-care involves acknowledging, accepting, and processing our feelings without judgment. It's about creating a safe, nurturing space for our emotions to simply exist and developing healthy coping mechanisms for stress and adversity. We have talked about this a lot in previous streams, and if you missed any of them and you want to go dive into any of those, you can hit my YouTube page. They're all on there. But there are some key practices to emotional well-being. Processing your emotions. Now, we live in a society, in a world where it is very easy to try to hide our emotions, to try to push them away, to make other people think we're doing well, right? Here, I'll prove it to you. How many times in your life, and you're probably not going to have the number because I know I don't, but how many times in your life has somebody asked you how you're doing and you said, fine? Or some variation of the word fine. That of course, it was not true. I do it all the time. I still do it. I don't want to do it, but I do it all the time. There are a few people in my life who have permission to call me out on that because they know I'm not fine when I answer that way. But I think it's incredible that we do that. And we do that because we don't want to deal with our emotions. We don't want to deal with what's actually going on. So we just say, I'm fine. So what are some ways we can process our emotions? You can journal your thoughts and feelings to gain clarity and release emotional buildup. You can allow yourself to feel difficult emotions like sadness, anger, or frustration rather than suppressing them. There are many, many ways to process our emotions well. Practicing mindfulness, going to therapy, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Journaling is one of my absolute favorites. Sometimes doing a physical activity where we can get the excess energy out, especially, I like to do that especially when I'm feeling anxious, are all good ways to process your emotions. But it's important that you do it. Don't pretend they're not there. We feel the things that we feel, and our emotions are valid. Don't let anybody invalidate the way you feel. Now, how we act on those emotions is different. We talked about that on Tuesday, the CBT triangle, right? Our thoughts and feelings and our behaviors. Our thoughts and feelings can influence our behavior, so we have to be careful to respond instead of reacting. Go back and listen to that one if you'd like. But process your emotions. Don't hide from them. Don't pretend they're not there. Learn to set boundaries is the next one. Learning to say no to protect your time and your energy and your sanity and your emotional well-being in general is very, very important. Learn to say no. So valuable. You don't have to be mean about it. And you can even explain why if you want to. You don't have to. But if somebody asks for something that you do not have the time or the energy to do at that moment, you can go, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now. It's really okay. Establishing firm boundaries in relationships helps to prevent resentment and burnout. Saying yes too often leads to both. It leads to resentment and burnout. Now, there are going to be things that you need to say yes to, and so say yes to them. But there are times that you can say no. It's okay. Another way to set boundaries is to limit your exposure to emotionally draining situations and media. I don't watch the news. I don't. It's emotionally draining for me, so I don't watch the news. I get news, like news briefs in my email a couple times a week, and that's it. People will ask me, oh, did you hear about this? I'll give you an example. And this is not because I am in support of the war in Iran. I am not. But this is because when it started, I didn't know. It was actually going on for a couple of days. And somebody asked me, what do you think about the war in Iran? I'm like, huh? There's a war in Iran? I just didn't know. Because I limit very much draining situations or media. I'll give you another example. You know I'm a pastor. If you don't know that, hey, I'm a pastor. That's what I do for a living. And one of the things that I discovered I have to do, a part of my job, and it's actually a part of my job I really enjoy, is counseling people who are going through difficult situations or couples and things like that. I realized years ago that I have to limit the number of counseling sessions I accept a week. And so when people call me and they want to meet with me, text me, talk to me at church on Sunday, whatever it might be, I limit the number of counseling sessions I do a week. Try to keep it literally to 1 or 2 if I can, because there was a period of time where I was doing 5, 6, 7 a week, and they are emotionally draining for me. So I limit the number of times I do that. Seek support, right? Engage in therapy or counseling to work through complex emotions or past trauma. Talk openly with trusted friends or family members who provide a safe listening space. Vulnerability is so important in our lives. Now, I'm not telling you to be vulnerable with every person you meet. Some people get to know some things. Some people get to know a lot of things. Very, very few, if any, get to know everything. And that's part of setting boundaries. There literally is, besides God, only one person in my life who knows everything, and that's my wife. There are a couple people, literally like 2 people, who know a lot about me. And there's quite a few people who know something about me just because I talk in front of people for a living. And so I share a lot of things when I do that. But not everybody gets to know everything. And be careful about who you're extremely vulnerable with. Make sure it's somebody you know and trust and who has your best interest at heart. But it's important to be vulnerable. And vulnerability breeds vulnerability, right? If you're vulnerable with somebody, it is much more likely that they will be vulnerable with you. They've done studies on it. I don't have the study in front of me to quote, but they've done studies on it. And if you really want to do some deep dive into what vulnerability is and what it looks like, check out some of Brene Brown's work. It's pretty fascinating. Finally, cultivate joy. Now, if you missed my Twitch stream on Tuesday, chapter 10 of my book, Intentional Joy, I'm going to do a snapshot of this topic here, but you can go back. We dove into that pretty deeply in my last stream. But cultivating joy, make time for hobbies, hobbies and activities that spark authentic joy and creativity. Practice self-compassion and speaking to yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend. I'm reading a really incredible book called After Doubt by A.J. Swoboda. Highly recommend it, especially if you've ever struggled with faith and you're not sure what you believe. It's actually a really, really good book for the person who is struggling with doubt and fear and the whole deconstruction movement. And it's not like overly preachy, and it's not at all in any way judging or condemning. It's just a really interesting look at it, and I highly recommend it. After Doubt by A.J. Swoboda. But as we talk about speaking to yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend, he brought up in that book that I thought was something that I thought was just fascinating. And the way we talk to ourselves. I don't know if this is true for you. It is certainly true for me. The way I would talk to myself, the way I talk to myself quite often, I would never talk to anybody else that way. And the things that I think about myself, God does not think about me. And I think it's pretty fascinating that we do that. We do that to ourselves. We put ourselves down when we wouldn't put other people down. We say things about ourselves that we wouldn't say about other people. We believe things about ourselves that are not true and that God has told us are not true. So yeah, speak to yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend. Make time for the things that cultivate authentic joy in your life. It's so valuable. It's really valuable. So that leads us to pillar number 3, spiritual connection. Spiritual care is about nurturing your inner peace, exploring your core values, which last week I did a whole shower thoughts on core values. If you missed that, it might still be up on Twitch, but if it's not, it's on my YouTube page. But explore your core values and cultivate a sense of purpose and meaning. Now, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to give the caveat. It is uniquely personal, and it doesn't inherently require a religious framework, though it can certainly include one. And now I mean that. You can make a spiritual connection without necessarily having a religious framework, though, and here's the caveat, I make no bones about the fact that I am a believer in Jesus Christ. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. I believe that his death and resurrection is the only means for our salvation, and he offers it to all of us freely if we would believe in him. And so if you're interested in that, throw a comment in there, send me a message. I would love to talk to you more about it. But if you are not a Christian, if you're not ready for that, you're not entirely sure what you believe entirely about God, you can still cultivate a spiritual practice in your life. And so here's a few ways you can do that. You can find your center, practice mindfulness or meditation to quiet your mind and connect with the present moment. You can engage in regular prayer, contemplation, or reflection. Now, I do those things. I practice mindfulness, I practice meditation in order to quiet my mind, and I try to do it in order to become more aware of the present moment, but I also do it in order to connect with God. And so I use prayer, I use contemplation and reflection, often reflecting on Scripture, on the Bible, in order to find my center, and I find my center in Jesus Christ. One of the most important chapters of the Bible to me is John chapter 15, where we are taught, where Jesus teaches us to abide in him, to dwell in him, or to live in him. So much of my mindfulness and meditation practices are focused on connecting with the present moment, but connecting with God in the present moment. And again, if you're not there, if that's not your particular cup of tea at the moment, I would encourage you to explore that particular cup of tea. It tastes pretty good. But there are ways of doing this. You can practice mindfulness and meditation and contemplation and reflection, even if you don't believe in God, and kind of give yourself a way to connect with the spiritual side of life. Honestly, I think if you do that, you'll probably find God is waiting for you. And that's not a threat. That's, it sounded a little creepy, didn't it? God is waiting for you. That is not what it was meant to be. It was just meant to be an encouraging thing that you may find in that place just how much God truly loves you. Another way you can practice or cultivate a spiritual connection in your life is by connecting with nature. Spending some quiet, intentional time outdoors away from technology is always good. Grounding is a great practice. And you can do that by walking in the woods, sitting by the water, dangle your feet in the river, right? Go walk on the grass barefoot. It's a wonderful way to ground. Or just feeling the sun on your face. One of my favorite things to do is I love to try to get outside. It's also really good for your circadian rhythm. This is the internal rhythm of your life that tells you when to go to bed and when to wake up. Okay, the circadian rhythm goes a lot farther than that, but for our purposes, that's good enough. And one of the things they suggest to help balance and maintain a good circadian rhythm is to feel the sun on your face within the first few minutes of waking up, if you can. And so one of the ways I do that is usually when I wake up in the morning, my dogs have to pee. So I take them outside and I let the sun hit my face for a couple minutes while my dogs take care of their morning constitution. The next practice is to pursue purpose and meaning. It's the whole, a big part, at least I'd say almost the whole intention behind my book, Living Intentionally, is to pursue purpose and meaning, but especially chapter 2, that we are created for a purpose. So if you missed that and you want to hit it, guess what? You can check it out on YouTube. Boy, I'm really pushing my YouTube channel today, though I'm very excited to be here with you on Twitch. And there's a lot of ways to do this. You can volunteer for a cause that you deeply care about. You can connect with something larger than yourself. You can engage in activities that align with your deepest values and beliefs. You have to know what your deepest values and beliefs are in order to align activities with those values and beliefs. So if you've never taken some time to explore your values, I would highly recommend you do that. You check out my stream from last week. Guess where? If it's not on Twitch, you can check it out on YouTube. And you can do things like read philosophical or spiritual texts that offer inspiration and perspective. Again, for me, that's the Bible. I read the Bible every day, usually at multiple times. I spend time reading the Bible every morning. I spend time reading the Bible every night before I go to bed. And then because of my job as a pastor, I often spend time in the Bible throughout my day. I did today. I was working on a Bible study for Monday that I'm teaching, so I spent time in a couple chapters of the Bible today preparing for that study. That's what I do, and I love it. I enjoy it deeply. I love what I do. But I highly recommend reading the Bible, but if maybe you're saying, well, the Bible's not for me, there's a lot of wonderful books. I mentioned Brene Brown. She is a great person to read. I mentioned a book by A.J. Swoboda, which is a wonderful book to read. I have many authors that I love. C.S. Lewis, Henry Nouwen is one of my all-time favorite authors. John Mark Comer, just tons of authors that I love to read. There's a few. You can pick one or you can find your own. But there's a lot of great ways just to read and kind of calm your mind and focus on something that is good for your spiritual well-being. And then the last one, and I love this one, cultivate gratitude. Regularly acknowledging and appreciating the positive aspects of your life. I did this. We talked about this immensely on Tuesday when we talked about chapter 10 of my book. But just acknowledging and appreciating the positive aspects of your life, keeping a gratitude journal to shift focus away from scarcity and toward abundance. I did this for a while and I stopped, and I really should start it up again, especially since I'm going to recommend it to you. Every night, I did this for a long period of time. I couldn't tell you quite how long, but what I would do is every night before I went to bed, and I would do it on my phone, I would write down 3 things I was grateful for from that day. It was just a way to make sure that before I went to bed that night, I acknowledged some good things that happened to me that day. And even if it was a bad day, and I found that to be extremely helpful, especially on bad days. But you can do it however you want. Do it in a physical journal. Do it on your phone. Just run through the list in your head if you don't feel like writing it down. But just cultivate a practice of gratitude. Now, I'm going to give you a quick word on balance, and then we'll probably be done for the day, unless my loyal viewer who's been here the whole time has a question or somebody else pops in with a question. True holistic self-care requires us to balance our attention across all three of these pillars. Neglecting one area often impacts the stability and health of the others. For example, and I mentioned this earlier, but ignoring physical rest will eventually degrade emotional resilience, and emotional burnout can lead to physical illness. I talked about that a lot in the chapter of my book about this. And so I just bring it up here again, because we talked about it a little bit ago. They all impact one another. If you are emotionally off balance, you will be physically and spiritually off balance. If you're physically off balance, you will be emotionally and spiritually off balance. And it's not like, if you get sick, you can't have good emotional or spiritual well-being. It's just that they affect each other. They work together in tandem all the time, and they affect each other. So if one of them is out of balance, especially really badly out of balance, the others will follow. And I'll give you just a fantastic example of that in my own life. You probably notice I fidget a lot if you watch me. I tend to move. I'm going to do it right now just to prove my point. But I tend to fidget a lot, and there's a reason for that. About almost 2 years ago, I'm a year and 11 months at this point, I had spinal fusion surgery. I had surgery on my spine. And even though the spinal fusion surgery worked wonderfully and my back is fully fused and it did what it was supposed to do, actually lost the use of my right leg completely. It was horrible. So the surgery was a necessity. That surgery has caused a couple of other minor back problems. And just in general, my back hurts and I have a really hard time getting comfortable, especially when I sit for long periods of time. But here's what I'm going to get at. When I hurt my back, I fell into a very deep depression. I had a lot of anxiety about what was going to happen as the result of the injury. I couldn't use my leg. I couldn't drive. It was really rough. And as a result of that depression, I ate a lot, right? So I was praying a lot during that time, but you can see that balance, right? Physical problem led to an emotional problem, which then added back into the physical problem because I was overeating and gaining weight without exercising because I couldn't move. It's really important that you take the time to balance these out. Spend time in each of them. It's very, very important. So to make holistic self-care a reality, it must be integrated into daily life rather than saved for emergencies. And so one way you can do this is to cultivate in your life a daily routine that includes self-care in all three areas. Here's a possible example. In the morning, start with maybe a short walk or some wake-up yoga and set your intentions for the day. At midday, take a break from a screen, step outside for fresh air. Maybe on your lunch break, go for a walk, maybe perform a quick emotional check-in. In the evening, you can disconnect from work, engage in joyful creative hobbies, or connect with loved ones. At the night, wind down with gratitude journaling, maybe a calming tea, a great bedtime routine so that you can get a good night's sleep. This is what my day looks like. That was kind of a random example that I borrowed from the internet. But let me tell you my routine. So I wake up every morning, and the first thing I do besides going to the bathroom, anybody else have to pee in the morning? I do. But the first thing I do besides going to the bathroom is I spend time with God by being in prayer and being in the Word. And part of that process is taking my dogs out to go to the bathroom. Sometimes it's a short walk, like I'll just take them for a half mile. Sometimes I'll take them for a mile or two, just depends on what my day looks like, what time my first meeting or appointment is, whatever that looks like for me, but that's the first thing I do in the morning. I spend time in prayer, spend time reading the Bible, and I take my dogs for a walk. Maybe a short walk, maybe a longer walk, but I get outside with my dogs for a little while. That's in the morning. Throughout the day, I will sometimes go play pickleball, again, depending on what my schedule looks like for the day. But throughout my day, I have a list on my phone, usually that I set at the beginning of the week of all the things I need to accomplish that week. And so during my workday, I check things off my list. But typically, and again, I work from home a lot, so I'm very grateful for that. My dogs need to go out during the day. So I will regularly take breaks from work to take my dogs outside, spend, even if it's just a couple minutes, letting the sun hit me, being away from my laptop and my phone and everything else, and just taking a short break. Then in the afternoon, if I haven't yet, I will exercise my actual exercise for the day. Like today, I played pickleball this morning, so I'm not going to do that this afternoon. But if I haven't done that, I might shower, I might do some weightlifting, I might go swimming, I might take the dogs for another walk. I have a dog, I call him my puppy, he's my baby, but he's going on 2 years old. He needs 2 to 3 miles a day at least. And so either I or my wife or my daughter always make sure we give him good walks. And so if I haven't done that yet and he hasn't had a long enough walk yet, I'll take him for a walk and just get some exercise in. And then I'm an evening shower, so I shower. I try to eat dinner with my family. If I've got something going on with church, great. If not, I have things going on. Like on Monday, we have our small group. Tuesdays, 2 or 3 times a month, I rehearse with the band I'm in. I play bass in a band. I make sure in the evenings to spend time with my family and my wife, especially as much as I can. And then I go through my bedtime routine, which I described to you earlier. But most of my days, unless something goes horribly wrong or there's something particularly exciting happening, most of my days look like that. And I find when I get out of my routine, I don't do as well as when I'm able to maintain my routine. So I just share that with you, right? I gave you the generic example that I stole from the internet, and then I gave you a specific example of what my day looks like. And I just encourage you, if you don't have a daily routine, work on cultivating one. So before we're done for the day, I don't see any questions popping up anywhere, and that's all right. But just as you consider your own self-care journey, I'm not going to check it, but I'm kind of giving you homework. Take a moment to reflect. Which area of self-care, physical, emotional, or spiritual, needs your attention the most today? And whichever one it is, from any of the things we talked about, or maybe something else, do something that will allow you to practice self-care in that area. So with all that being said, I hope you have an amazing Friday. I hope you have an amazing weekend. And, well, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, as they used to say. Maybe you've never heard that, but I'm old, so it's been around for a while. We'll see you next week. Until then, may the Lord bless you.